Today's topic is going to be specifically advocacy issues.
Advocacy is part of our mission statement here at the Chicago Women's AIDS Project. We do a lot of different kinds of advocacy. One of the types that we do is kind of an individual advocacy by empowering women to educate themselves and stand up for themselves, and then advocate for each other. So we have a lot of peer-to-peer programs that we do at CWAP that really empower women to advocate for each other and educate each other.
Ones that we do have is our Southside support groups, which is kind of a peer-facilitated group. We also have them on the North Side and the West Side. And within those groups, not only do we teach individuals becoming leaders within the group, but also teaching advocacy and going out to the communities and speaking about what's going on and the different changes that are happening.
Our groups are a really neat and unique form of advocacy, and in what Octavia said, that they're peer facilitated. We also bring in information, speakers, educational opportunities for the women in the groups, which is a really good opportunity to help the women learn about opportunities that may be available to them and educational information. We have our peer program, where we do have peer workers who help us out in the office and in the community, and then they go out and educate others. They share information with other women and really try to reach other positive women who might not be in services, who might not be getting the support that they need, and help them hook them up with CWAP and our programs. They also help educate each other.
So when you think about advocacy, it takes place on a community, a local, and a state level. So within your community, it's important to get involved with the different organizations and different groups to take a part of and to have a voice within those. So it's good if you can be on a board. You want to look for boards that you can be on. So one of the other things we want to talk about with advocacy is, like I said, it's important to get connected to your community and know what's in the area that you live in, and try and stretch outside your boundaries. A lot of times if we live north, we kind of don't really want to go south, or we don't really want to go west. But it's important for us to come together as a community, because as that cliche saying goes, there is strength in numbers. And so we want to connect to everyone around the city.
Volunteering is actually, I think, in some ways could be counted as a kind of advocacy, because it takes getting involved in your community, getting involved maybe in issues that are not your primary issue, and giving back, and it gives the volunteers a chance to learn about other issues that are happening.
Advocacy part that you could play up, which is the election, able to tackle it both on a community, on a local, and a state level. And I would suggest getting familiar with your aldermen and knowing what are their thoughts on this and what are their ideas on the policies and the legislative body that kind of needs to change to support more services, more quality services.
And a lot of times legislatively, there's a lot of issues that can affect people with HIV and other populations, people living in poverty, people who are systematically, oppressed in a lot of ways. And so it's good to get involved in those types of things. And there's lots of ways to do that. Obviously, the best way to do it is to vote, and you want to make sure that you're registered to vote. As far as getting involved in other ways, I know that the AIDS Foundation of Chicago has an email list you can sign up for, and they'll send emails about issues and ask you to send an email or make a call to a congressman or an alderman, ask them to vote a certain way that supports people living with HIV or supports people in poverty. And those calls can actually make a very big difference.
It's going to be a larger impact when there's a larger group of individuals calling. And we want to make sure that it just is not for individuals who are actually living with HIV and AIDS. This affects our community as a whole. And so even individuals who are not diagnosed with it still should be involved in the community and be involved in making the changes.
It's really great to see when women can refer each other to other services as opposed to having to come to a provider to get those services.
Right, and it creates a different a level of genuineness, if you would. I don't necessarily know about what are the good doctors and what are the bad doctors, but someone who is involved in care and has access to quality care would know more information than I would. We always encourage our women to become leaders within the community and within their peers. We have several ladies who attend a lot of different groups within a lot of different clinics, and they bring back that information back to the group.
Having those kinds of personal information is so helpful, because when you have a personal referral, you're more likely to trust it.
I think within that, it's about decreasing and eliminating stigma. And so we always have this stigma of those outside and around us and how they see us to be and what they think was going on with us. And then we have our internal stigma. And so not wanting to let others know what we're living through and not wanting to acknowledge even within ourselves what we're going through. And that's a really big part of advocacy. You have to be comfortable in your skin. You have to be comfortable with who you are and in order to be a strong advocate.
And Octavia, I think you touched on a really good point there about how other issues that you can advocate about affect HIV. So it's not just HIV funding, but it could be services for people who are suffering from mental illness. It could be services for people of color. It could be things to end discrimination. A lot of minorities are highly affected by HIV. And there's a lot of programs that, need to be funded so that discrimination does not continue.